Do you know what the fastest growing industry in communications is? If you said smartphones, you'd be correct, according to Business Insider. My name is Chance Walmsley, and I'm a phone enthusiast. I feel qualified to inform you of the history of smartphones. First, we're going to start off with the history. Next, we're going to move on to the growth of smartphones in the global market. And finally, we're going to finish on the smartphone market in 2016. So, to start it off, we're going through the history. In 1992, IBM introduced the Simon, which was the first smartphone ever seen. It was $899 on contract, and it featured a battery life of about an hour. In 1996, we saw our next smartphone from Nokia. They introduced a smartphone with a full QWERTY keyboard, and this was the first that we had ever seen of that. Next, in 1999, we saw a smartphone from BlackBerry, which had a full QWERTY keyboard but was improved since the 1996 Nokia. This one was favored by fans, and BlackBerry started to make a name for themselves. In the early 2000s, we got BlackBerry introduced the 5810, which was the first cell phone that was able to call. And in 2003, we got BlackBerry's next phone, which featured a integrated web browser in the phone, which allowed you to surf the internet from a mobile device. Now, some of the companies that we saw in the early 2000s were HTC, Nokia, Sony, BlackBerry, Palm, Samsung, and more. Now, moving on to January 2007, when the smartphone market started to take off in a different direction. Apple got introduced in 2007 in January when they announced the iPhone, which was the first smartphone from Apple. It released in June of that year, and it has been on the rise since. Okay, in September 2013, two smartphones were released by Apple. This was the first year that they released two at the same time. This was the 5C and the 5S. This was popular, and it was one of the most successful brands. In September 2014, we saw an iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, where they first took the design to where they added a phone and a second edition which had a larger screen. Now, in 2008, we go back to when Google decided to take on the iOS, or the operating system for Apple. They released an Android phone called the HTC G1, which featured Google's first operating system, nicknamed Android. It was on T-Mobile, and after the release of the first Android smartphone, people knew that it was going to take off fast. In 2009, we got Android Cupcake and Donut, introducing the sweet treats which Android operating systems are named after. In 2010, Google introduced its own brand of Android smartphone called the Nexus. This was a fan-favorite Android because updates to the operating system are instant. Some phone manufacturers that have Android are LG, Sony, Samsung, HTC, and Nexus. Okay, now we move on to growth. In 2006, there were 10 to 20 million people using smartphones. Now you go to 2015, where you have 2+ billion people on smartphones, which is exponential growth. In 2020, it's predicted that over 3.5 billion people will be using smartphones worldwide, which is approaching half the population of the entire world. Now, in current day, we have iPhone, which is still prominent in the US. Now, it has iOS 9, and in March of 2016, they just released the iPhone SE. Okay, next we have Android, which is bigger than ever. They have so many brands right now, and they keep on going. We have the Galaxy S7, which was just released and is said to be the best smartphone on Android right now. And Android is currently running on Android M, and Android N will be releasing this year. Android M stands for Marshmallow, and N is for Nutella. Now, for Windows Phone, we also have the Windows Surface Phone, which is releasing this year as well. In conclusion, we've covered smartphones and the history of their demise and rise. Smartphones were once luxurious and are now considered commonplace among many people.